The moon loomed beyond the viewport, a desolate titan of ash and shadow, its craters carving jagged wounds across its surface. Each minute brought us closer, the gray expanse filling our lunar module's window with an oppressive weight. I, Mark Thompson, science officer of Lunar Mission 23, sat at my station, fingers brushing the cold metal of the instrument panel. This was my third journey to Moonbase Alpha, a 6-month assignment studying lunar atmospheric traces. The routine should have been comforting. Commander Bill Anderson's steady presence at the command console, Systems Specialist Samantha Bailey's precise piloting. But a nameless unease gnawed at me, tightening my shoulders like a warning whispered in a language I couldn't parse. The cabin thrummed with the pulse of navigation systems, a mechanical heartbeat that seemed to mock our fragility in the vacuum. Beyond the hull, the moon's silence was absolute, a void that swallowed sound and hope alike. Samantha's voice sliced through the hum, calm yet clipped. Final approach sequence initiated. Her brown hair, pulled into a neat ponytail, swayed as she adjusted controls with the grace of muscle memory. Bill nodded, his eyes scanning readouts with practiced focus. Looking good. Docking at Alpha in 43 minutes. I ran the pre-docking checklist, my hands moving automatically, switches flipped, readings confirmed, all nominal. Yet the moon outside felt wrong, its craters too deep, their shadows pooling like ink. I shook off the thought, chalking it up to fatigue, but the tension lingered, a cold weight in my chest. The communication system crackled to life, shattering the rhythm. Lunar Module 3, this is mission control. Priority transmission. Bill's brow furrowed, his hand pausing over the comm switch. This is Commander Anderson. Go ahead. The voice returned, sharp and urgent. Divert to Moonbase Bravo immediately. Chemical leak detected at Alpha. Repeat, divert to Bravo. The words hung in the air, heavy as lunar dust. We exchanged glances, Samantha's fingers freezing on the controls, Bill's jaw tightening. My stomach churned, a cold knot forming. Mission control, confirm diversion to Bravo, Bill said, his voice steady despite the sudden shift. Confirmed, Commander. Alpha is unsafe. Proceed to Bravo for mission continuation. The transmission cut off, leaving a silence that pressed against my eardrums. Bravo, Samantha said, her tone flat, almost disbelieving. That auxiliary base has been abandoned for years. At least 3, I added, pulling up schematics on my tablet. The data was sparse. Moonbase Bravo, a temporary outpost built to house 12 personnel during Alpha's expansion, with minimal life support and basic research facilities. It wasn't designed for long-term use. Bill's expression remained neutral, but his eyes flickered with concern. We have our orders. Samantha, calculate new approach vectors for Bravo. Yes, sir, she replied, her fingers resuming their dance across the controls. I scrolled through Bravo's file, the screen's glow casting harsh shadows on my face. Built as a stopgap, Bravo was a skeletal structure, its systems likely dormant, its corridors dark. We'll make it work, Bill said, his tone final, but the words felt hollow. Samantha announced a 2-hour ETA, and the cabin sank into a tense quiet. We each focused on our tasks, but I caught Samantha's glance at the comm system, then Bill's, both hoping for a reversal that never came. The moon grew larger, its craters like open mouths, and I couldn't shake the sense that we were being drawn not to a base, but to a grave. 2 hours later, Samantha guided our module to a flawless landing 2 miles from Bravo's main entrance. The lunar dust rose in slow, perfect arcs, settling in the vacuum's eerie silence. As the haze cleared, I leaned toward the viewport, my breath catching. Bill, the base has lights on. He squinted at the distant structure, where pinpricks of light glowed in Bravo's windows, casting a pale sheen across the lunar surface. That's impossible, he said, his voice low. Power should have been shut down when it was abandoned. I ran diagnostics, my fingers trembling over the controls. Power signatures indicate full operational capacity. Life support, environmental systems, everything's active. Could someone have reactivated it remotely? Samantha asked, but her tone betrayed her doubt. Bill shook his head. Without telling us? No, something's not right. We suited up in silence, the hiss of our EVA suits amplifying the cabin's tension. The suit's fabric clung to my skin, cold and unyielding, their weight a reminder of the void outside. Bill reviewed protocol. Standard approach. Mark, you're on comms and readings. Samantha, with me. Keep emergency oxygen ready. The airlock cycled with a mechanical groan, and we stepped onto the lunar surface. The low gravity made each step a surreal bounce, dust rising and falling in hypnotic arcs. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the crackle of our comms and the faint hum of our suit systems. The 2-mile trek to Bravo was arduous, our boots sinking slightly into the regolith, each step a reminder of our isolation. The base grew clearer, its lit windows like eyes watching our approach. Shadows flickered behind the thick glass, indistinct but undeniable, moving where no one should be. Base should be powered down, Bill repeated, his voice tight through my earpiece. His handheld scanner confirmed my readings. Full operation, no anomalies. Yet the lights burned, their glow unnatural against the moon's gray desolation. The main airlock's panel lit up as we neared, recognizing our presence with an eerie intelligence. Bill hesitated, his gloved hand hovering over the access panel. It's like it's expecting us, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He pressed the panel, and the outer door slid open smoothly, as if maintained daily. The airlock chamber was pristine, its walls gleaming under the harsh light. The cycle completed, and the inner door opened, revealing a corridor bathed in dim blue emergency lights. Atmosphere reads normal, I confirmed, checking my instruments. Oxygen at 21%. No toxins, temperature stable. Helmets off, Bill ordered. But keep suits on until we secure the area. We removed our helmets, the air breathable but heavy, laced with a metallic tang that coated my tongue and stung my nostrils. The corridor hummed with the low drone of life support, air recyclers whirring, water systems gurgling, all functioning as if the base had never been abandoned. The walls were smooth, unmarred by dust, their gray composite material reflecting the blue light in faint, unsettling glints. This doesn't make sense, Samantha whispered, her voice echoing in the stillness, unnaturally loud. We moved deeper, our boots clanging softly against the metal floor. The corridor branched into the common area, and we stopped dead, the sight freezing us in place. The room looked lived in, as if its occupants had stepped out moments ago. A table held 3 mugs, their rims crusted with dried coffee, the faint scent of staleness lingering. Food packets, some torn open, were stacked neatly on a counter, their labels faded but legible. A tablet lay beside a mug, its screen dark but warm to the touch, as if recently used. Someone's been here, Samantha said, lifting a mug, her fingers trembling as she turned it over, revealing a faint stain. I approached the main computer terminal, expecting resistance, but it powered on instantly, no password required. The screen flared to life, log entries loading in a cascade of text. My stomach tightened as I scanned the data. Last entry 18 months ago, I said, my voice hollow. Day 127. No response from mission control. Continuing observations of the anomaly. What anomaly? Bill asked, leaning over my shoulder, his breath warm against my neck. I shook my head, scrolling further. Doesn't specify. Nothing after that. The words hung in the air, their vagueness a taunt. The bass's hum grew louder, or perhaps it was my pulse, thudding in my ears. Bill's hand rested on the table, his fingers brushing the tablet, as if its warmth could reveal its user. Samantha paced, her eyes darting to the shadows pooling in the room's corners. The air felt thicker now, the metallic taste sharpening, like blood or rust. A soft thud echoed from deeper in the base, from the corridor leading to the sleeping quarters and research labs. Bill raised a hand, silencing us. Another sound followed. A scrape, like metal dragged across metal, deliberate and slow. I heard something move, Bill said, pointing toward the corridor, his voice low but firm. Samantha's eyes widened, her hand gripping the mug tightly. Could someone still be here? I checked my tablet, the screens glow harsh in the dim light. Life support says it's supporting 6 people. 6. Bill's eyebrows rose, his voice sharp. That's impossible. Footsteps echoed, closer now, measured and heavy, as if someone or something knew we were listening. Bill straightened, his posture shifting to command mode. Stay behind me. We moved as a unit, the blue emergency lights casting long, distorted shadows that seemed to writhe against the walls. The corridor narrowed, the air growing colder, the metallic tang now a physical weight in my throat. At the mess hall doorway, I froze, my breath catching, my mind struggling to process the impossible. Sitting at the table were 3 people who shouldn't exist. Another Bill, another Samantha, another me. They sat in a tableau of eerie familiarity, their faded mission patches stark against their worn jumpsuits. The other Bill, past Bill, I'd later call him, had grayer hair, deeper wrinkles etching his face, his eyes carrying a weariness our Bill hadn't yet earned. The other Samantha's hair hung loose and tangled, her face gaunt, her gaze fixed on our Samantha with a sorrow that made my chest ache. The other Mark, past Mark, stared at me, his dark-circled eyes sunken, a patchy beard where I was clean-shaven, his hair wild and too long. His look was a cold blade, piercing and accusing, as if I'd stolen something vital from him. Past Bill raised his hands slowly, palms open, his voice a rough echo of our commander's. We've been expecting you, he said, the words heavy with resignation. We hoped you wouldn't come. Samantha gripped my arm, her nails biting through my jumpsuit, her face pale. How? She stammered, her voice barely audible. Past Samantha's eyes filled with tears, her hands trembling as she clasped them together. I'm sorry, she said, her voice breaking. I'm so sorry you're here. I stepped forward, my legs unsteady, my voice shaking with defiance and fear. Who are you people? Some kind of welcome crew? A psychological test? Past Mark laughed, a harsh, humorless bark that echoed in the small room. That's exactly what I said, word for word. It won't last. His fingers tapped nervously on the table, his eyes never leaving mine, as if searching for a flaw in my existence. Bill moved in front of us, his posture protective. Identify yourselves. Now. Past Bill stood, his movements deliberate, mirroring our Bill's authority. We're Lunar Mission 23. Commander William Anderson, Science Officer Mark Thompson, Systems Specialist Samantha Bailey. Diverted from Alpha 18 months ago due to a chemical leak. That's us, Bill said, his voice flat, his eyes narrowing. Our names, our mission designation. Past Bill nodded, his expression unreadable. We're you, or you're us. Time works differently here. Past Samantha wiped her eyes, her voice trembling through her tears. We were told to divert to Bravo just like you. Our module crashed after landing. We've been stranded ever since. My mind raced, grasping for explanations, hallucinations from oxygen deprivation, an elaborate hoax, clones, imposters. None fit. I pulled out my tablet, accessing the mission database, my fingers fumbling over the screen. The report for Lunar Mission 23 loaded, and nausea surged through me. According to this, I said, my voice sounding distant, Lunar Mission 23 was lost 18 months ago. Catastrophic failure during landing at Bravo. All hands declared dead. Past Mark's eyes darted nervously, his fingers twitching. Makes sense. No one could have survived that crash. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. We're you from the past. Time works differently here. You'll see. Bill pulled us into the corridor for a private huddle, his face tight with strain. They can't be us, Samantha whispered, her voice trembling. It's not possible. They know our mission details, our names, Bill said, his tone measured but tense. They're physically identical, just older, worn down. I ran a hand through my short hair, trying to anchor myself. If Bravo was abandoned 3 years ago, who's maintaining it? The life support systems are flawless. The power's on, the air's clean. Them, apparently, Bill said, glancing back toward the mess hall. But why claim they're us from the past? It makes no sense. We need to contact Mission Control, I said. Request immediate extraction. Once Alpha's leak is cleared, we can relocate there. Bill nodded. I'll try to establish comms again. The signal's been spotty since we landed. Samantha's voice dropped to a near whisper, her eyes wide. What if they're telling the truth? What if time really is broken here somehow? I wanted to dismiss the idea, to cling to logic, but the evidence, the lived-in room, the active systems, their faces gnawed at my certainty. The base's hum felt alive now, a pulse that seemed to sync with my heartbeat, its metallic tang coating my throat like a warning. We returned to the mess hall, keeping our distance from our doppelgangers. Past Bill seemed to sense our caution and didn't press closer. You have questions, he said, his tone almost gentle. That's natural. Ask whatever you want. How are you here now? Bill asked, his voice steady but edged with suspicion. Wouldn't that create a paradox? Past Mark laughed again, the sound grating, like glass grinding against stone. Paradoxes are the least of our problems. The normal rules don't apply here. What happened to your module? I asked, my tablet still clutched in my hand, as if its data could anchor me to reality. Past Bill and past Samantha exchanged a look, a silent communication that made my stomach tighten. It crashed during landing, Past Bill said, his voice heavy. Despite Samantha's best efforts, the guidance systems failed at the last minute. We barely made it out alive. Our landing was perfect, Samantha protested, her voice rising with defiance. Past Samantha looked away, her hands twisting together. So was mine, she whispered, her words barely audible. For hours we questioned them, their answers detailed yet maddeningly cryptic, as if they were guarding a truth too heavy to share. They spoke of months in isolation, failed rescue attempts, and strange phenomena. Lights flickering without cause, equipment activating unprompted, shadows moving where no one stood. Communications with Earth are unreliable, Past Bill said. Sometimes messages get through, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they arrive before they're sent. As lunar night fell, our arbitrary schedule in the moon's unchanging dark, Bill established a weak connection with Mission Control. The message was laced with static, but the meaning was clear. Alpha's chemical leak remained unresolved, and no rescue was imminent. I tried to sleep in the crew quarters they'd assigned us, far from their rooms, but my mind churned. The base's hum seeped into my dreams, a relentless drone, and outside my window, the lunar surface stretched endlessly, gray and lifeless. Yet, in the corner of my vision, I swore I saw a shadow flicker, a suited figure there and gone where no one should be. A week into our stay, our lunar module exploded in a silent inferno, flames licking the vacuum without sound. We stood on the lunar surface, suited up, watching our only escape burn. The wreckage glowed red-hot, debris scattered across the regolith, a mirror of the older crash site nearby. Past Bill, who'd followed us out, stood motionless, his visor reflecting the flames. It always happens, he said, his voice flat through the comms. Now you're trapped too. The flames died in the oxygen-starved void, leaving twisted metal and a hollow ache in my chest. Back inside, we fell into a nervous routine, sharing the base with our duplicates. Bill enforced strict separation protocols, but Bravo's cramped quarters made avoidance impossible. I updated our ship's log daily, the act a lifeline to sanity as reality frayed. Day 7 at Moonbase Bravo, I typed, my fingers trembling. Module explosion matches past crew's description. Supplies adequate, water recycling at 97% efficiency, air quality nominal. No rescue communication despite repeated attempts. My quarters were Spartan. A narrow bed, a small desk, a storage locker, but the walls held secrets. Near the ceiling, I found tally marks scratched into the composite material, exactly 18 months worth, a chilling record of time endured. Each mark was precise, carved with intent, as if counting days could hold back the madness. The metallic tang in the air grew sharper, a constant reminder of the base's unnatural vitality. One evening, past Mark knocked on my door, his eyes jumpy, his hair sticking up at odd angles. "I need to show you something," he said, clutching a tablet filled with complex equations and pulsing wave patterns. "It's a time loop. The base sits on an anomaly." He pointed to energy readings, spikes strongest at the base's center, weakening outward. "Your crash completed the circuit. The loop needs energy to maintain itself, our patterns, our actions. It's feeding on us." His words were feverish, his diagrams chaotic yet precise, mapping distortions that defied physics. I wanted to dismiss him, but the data was compelling, the spikes correlating with our arrival. Before I could press further, Bill summoned us to a briefing, and past Mark clutched his tablet tighter, muttering about being ignored. At the meeting, past Bill dropped a bombshell. The chemical leak at Alpha was a lie. There was no leak. It was an excuse to divert you here, just as it diverted us 18 months ago. Samantha's voice trembled. "Then who sent the order?" Past Samantha looked away, her voice barely audible. "We did. We will. It's all part of the loop." I accessed the communication logs, my heart pounding. The diversion order originated from Bravo, not Mission Control. "Someone at this base sent the message that brought us here," I said, my voice shaking. Past Bill nodded slowly. "The same thing happened to us. We found the same log entry after our crash." The meeting stretched into hours, past Bill detailing their failed escape attempts, equipment sabotaged by inexplicable failures, accidents that defied probability, signals to Earth growing fainter. After, I suited up to inspect the wreckage, needing to see the evidence myself. The lunar surface was a gray wasteland, the silence absolute. Our module's debris aligned perfectly with the older crash site, an impossible symmetry that made my head spin. Each piece of our wreckage had a counterpart, as if the crashes were the same event, separated only by time. 50 yards away, I saw past Mark hurrying toward the base, his suit's markings unmistakable, his gait awkward in the low gravity. I followed, but back inside, an alarm shattered the silence, blaring through the corridors. I raced to the crew quarters, where Bill and Samantha were already gathered, past Bill struggling with a locked door. From within, past Mark's screams tore through the air, raw with terror. "We need to get out, before it happens again." The door slid open, revealing past Mark on his knees, clawing at the walls. Blood streaked the gray surface where his nails had broken, his fingers raw and trembling. "We need to get out before we become them," he whispered, his eyes locking onto mine, wide with fear. "Before we send the message. Before we complete the loop." We restrained him, his body thrashing until Samantha administered a sedative. As he went limp, I saw the wall behind him, covered in bloody scratches. 19 times repeated obsessively, a mantra of despair. The sight burned into my mind, a warning I couldn't decipher but couldn't ignore. 2 weeks later, past Mark's condition deteriorated further. He rarely slept, pacing the corridors at all hours, his footsteps a relentless echo through the base's metal floors. The sound became a constant backdrop, a reminder that something was deeply wrong. When not pacing, he scribbled equations, diagrams, phrases like break the sequence, temporal divergence point, and anomaly containment failure, covering every surface near his room. His walls were a chaotic tapestry of math and madness, arrows connecting variables and patterns only he understood. His eyes had changed, the fear once mingled with hope now replaced by a dark, simmering hatred, especially when he looked at me. During meals, I'd catch him staring, his fork frozen midair, his gaze a mix of jealousy and rage that made my skin crawl. I began eating in my room, avoiding his presence, but Bill noticed. "You can't hide from him forever," he said one morning, catching me hurrying from the common area with my breakfast. "We're stuck here together." "I'm not hiding," I lied, "just giving him space." "He's fixating on you," Bill said, keeping his voice low. "Past Bill says it's happened before. You're the variable that could change the equation. What does that mean? I asked, frustration creeping into my tone. Bill shook his head. I don't know, but we need to be careful. Samantha withdrew further, spending hours in the observatory, staring at Earth through the thick glass. One evening, she showed me her journal, its pages filled with hurried, messy handwriting, dates crossed out and rewritten as if she'd lost track of time. I stopped writing after 3 months, she said, her voice hollow. It felt pointless. Time's meaningless here. She pulled up her sleeve, revealing tally marks on her forearm, identical to those on past Samantha's skin. Some were neat, others frantic scratches she didn't remember making. I'm becoming her, she whispered, her eyes distant, as if already half lost to the loop. I explored the base's lower level, driven by a need to understand. At the end of a maintenance corridor, I found a locked door, its panel unyielding to my access code. Using Bill's override, I entered a small room lined with storage lockers. The air was stale, untouched for months, perhaps years. The first locker held a tablet and a handwritten journal labeled Lunar Mission 23, Commander William Anderson. The dates were wrong 18 months ago, matching our duplicate's arrival. Each subsequent locker revealed more logs, 18 sets in total, each describing the same events with slight variations. Different wording, altered reactions, but always the same diversion, duplicates, and abrupt endings. Samantha found me hours later, sitting among the journals, their weight crushing. We're not the second crew, I said, my voice barely audible. We're the 19th. She picked up a journal, her hands trembling as she read. The anomalies repeating time, each cycle slightly different, but always ending the same. Past Mark knows, she said. That's why he's losing his mind. Past Bill and past Samantha know too. They've been warning us without saying it outright. Past Mark's paranoia escalated. At a tense dinner, he accused me of stealing his research, lunging across the table with a fork. It slashed my cheek, warm blood trickling down my face. Bill and past Bill restrained him, his screams echoing as we locked him in a reinforced medical bay. It always progresses this way, past Bill said, his voice heavy. The scientist breaks first, then the pilot, then the commander. Samantha's mental state unraveled. She drew tally marks obsessively, sometimes mistaking herself for past Samantha, her identity slipping. Bill spent hours in the chapel, a quiet corner of the rec room, reading a Bible marked by previous crews with passages about eternal suffering and cycles of torment. Their notes, in different handwritings, spoke of despair and divine tests, as if each crew had sought meaning in their entrapment. Past Bill showed me the anomaly's heart, a metallic object, basketball-sized, embedded in the maintenance room's foundation, pulsing with faint blue light. The construction crew found it beneath the surface, he said. It exists in multiple times simultaneously, trapping reality's layers like geological strata. The object glowed brighter as I approached, its pulses quickening, emitting energy readings that defied our instruments. We've tried moving it, destroying it, past Bill said. Nothing works. 6 weeks in, an alarm woke me, its wail cutting through the silence. I grabbed an electric prod we'd fashioned for past Mark, whose violence had worsened. The corridors flashed red, the emergency lights painting the walls in blood-like hues. I ran to the medical bay, where past Bill lay face down, blood pooling from a head wound. He was alive but unconscious, his pulse weak. The medical bay door was shattered, the restraints empty, the medicine cabinet ransacked. Following a trail of dented walls and blood smears, I tracked past Mark to the communications room. Through the window, I saw him hunched over the console, his jumpsuit torn, blood streaking his face from self-inflicted cuts. His eyes were nearly black, only a thin ring of iris visible, his expression a twisted mix of smile and snarl. "I'm saving us," he said, his voice distorted, as he sent garbled messages to Earth. Bill arrived, wielding a metal bar. The door's manual override worked, but past Mark grabbed a pipe, swinging it with feral strength. "One of us has to die," he screamed, lunging at me. I ducked, the pipe grazing my scalp, pain flaring. Bill tried to grab him, but past Mark struck his ribs, sending him gasping. "It has to be you," past Mark hissed, pinning me against the wall, the pipe pressing my throat. Black spots danced in my vision, my hand grasping blindly until it closed on a shard of broken monitor glass. With a desperate surge, I drove it into his neck. Blood sprayed, bright and horrifying, as he stumbled back, hands clutching the wound. He collapsed, gurgling, his body twitching once before stilling. His face, my face, stared blankly, and I vomited, the reality of killing myself shattering my mind. His body began to fade, edges turning translucent, until only the blood-soaked floor remained. Then that too vanished, as if he'd never been. 2 weeks later, Samantha found past Samantha dead in the bathroom, wrists slashed with a mirror shard, blood swirling with the shower's water. Her body dissolved, leaving no trace, the shower curtain fading moments later. Bill confessed to helping past Bill die with morphine, his body vanishing too. "3 down," he said, staring at the empty bed. Now the hard part begins. Samantha's identity eroded. She spoke of phantom rescue teams, drew tally marks obsessively, and stared at reflective surfaces, as if seeking another self. Bill revealed the anomaly's origin. A metallic object found during mining, its extraction fracturing time. 19 cycles, he said, showing past Bill's journal. Each ends with 3 deaths, 3 suicides, then a reset. 3 months in, Bill offered me a syringe in the observatory, Earth glowing distant and unattainable. "Samantha's gone," he said, his voice breaking. "She couldn't tell who she was anymore." He proposed we die on our terms, denying the loop its victory. We sat side by side, needles poised. "On 3, Bill said. 1, 2. I injected the morphine, its cold rush pulling me under. My last thought of Samantha, fading into the loop's embrace. I awoke to the module's steady beeping, the navigation system's hum filling the cabin. Bill sat at the command console, Samantha piloted, both younger, unscarred, unaware. My uniform was crisp, my hands unmarred, but the memory of morphine lingered, a ghost in my veins. I touched my face, clean-shaven, no trace of Bravo's wear. "We can't go to Bravo," I croaked, my voice raw. They turned, alarmed, as I stumbled to the comms, shouting warnings of the anomaly, the loop, the 19 cycles. My notepad, impossibly, held my future handwriting. Equations, diagrams, please scrawled in a frantic hand I hadn't yet developed. "It's proof," I begged. But Bill saw only a psychological episode, Samantha only a friend unraveling. They contacted Alpha, receiving only static. Bravo's lights blinked below, welcoming us. "We'll investigate together," Bill promised, but I knew the script. The landing, the crash, the duplicates, the deaths. As we descended, the lunar surface rushed up, Samantha's hands steady, Bill's eyes focused. I clutched the notepad, its warnings a futile cry against the loop's relentless pull. Moonbase Bravo remains a fracture in reality. Its anomaly a wound that bleeds time. Were we pawns in a divine test, or prey to an alien intelligence? The truth lies buried in the lunar dust, waiting for the next crew to repeat our fate, or break the cycle we could not.